Hi, welcome into this capital funded group review, where I will be showing you how to get fast and flexible funding to help continue to grow and expand your business, as well as answering the question too, is capital funded group legit, and much more. My name is Michael with Viral Funding Solutions. I'm an expert business loan broker slash agent who's been doing this for quite some time, helping out a lot of business owners of a lot of different industries get the right type of financing, getting them in the right vehicle for long-term growth and success with the right roadmap and the right partnership and so much more. Now, let me jump right into this. Are they legit? Yes. However, that does not necessarily mean they are the best option for you. And you'll discover more of that as we move forward in this review and uncover more of the deep, dark truths. But I'm going to answer this part right now that may kind of surprise you, or you may say, oh, no, I've had enough. They may be participating in what are called trigger leads. Now, this is where, let's say you go and apply online for a business loan, cash advance, wherever that may be. And now that information is dispersed into the credit bureaus, the personal credit bureaus, in most cases, Experian, TransUnion, etc. And now that that information is stored there, there will be people out there, organizations, lenders, in some cases, you see that a lot. In others, depending on what they're buying, you see it perhaps in brokers slash agents. And I do not participate in any of this, just so you know. And what happens is it's stored on those credit bureaus, and people go in there and they buy it. They go to the highest buyer slash bidder, and they can then take that information and see where you've already applied. And then on their behalf, they contact you, and you're wondering, who are you? I never gave you my information. Maybe you had already applied over here with somebody you personally knew. Maybe there was an agent or a broker who you spoke with, who you have a great personal and or business relationship with. And then you applied through the program, the lender or the lenders, and you're going, that's not what we're doing. Who are they now? Why are they requesting my 3 or so months of bank statements? Why are they telling me to start an application with them? I've never heard of them. And it's not necessarily the broker or agent's fault unless you're doing something wrong. Maybe you went to the wrong person. With me, that won't happen. You're going to be in safe hands. And so what happens is then now you're wondering, are they supposed to be trusted? I don't want to move forward with this. You're getting bombarded with emails, texts, phone calls. Somehow they have your Facebook account. I don't know. They probably don't go to that extreme, but they're going to be emailing you time and time again. And that's how a lot of these things happen, where you're seeing a lot of these emails, even from people you don't even know who you applied to, because that information then is being sold to other third parties. Maybe they bought the data, they didn't work through you. That information is then sent to someone else or beforehand. And then now you have a lot of people who are contacting you. So you have to be very careful about answering to those emails where people tell you to sign the contracts. And I've had cases where this has happened, not only here, but in other organizations slash lenders. And there are a lot out there that are just there to make money for themselves. They don't really care about you. They might be giving you something that doesn't work, and they know that. They just want you to sign something. Then they send that information to someone else, and it's going to hurt your credit score. They may tell you it's a soft pull, but then it ends up being a hard pull. They don't tell you all of this. And you have to be very careful about who you turn to. So if you think you've heard enough, and I've seen this from other individuals saying that they've been reached out, their clients have been getting reached out by somebody like Capital Funding Group. There's also City Advance, and I've had other ones. And it's happened to me in the past before with other organizations as well, where I'm wondering why my client is coming back to me saying, hey, do you know, why is this person requesting me to sign contracts or send them bank statements or just apply? I have never heard of them. And I go, oh, it was not brought by me. What's happening is this thing called trigger leads, where the information is stored out there, usually on the credit bureau. That information is then bought where they sell it. And so then they're able to get a hold of you. And there's also this other form called syndication, where your information is already stored. Think about it like an Excel spreadsheet, but not quite. It's just a huge amount of data with your information like revenue, credit, and all this. So people on their behalf can maybe contact you. It happens a lot with trigger leads, where I've seen it and they go, hey, we're with, and they're not actually with that organization or with that lender, but they act on behalf of it just to make it synonymous and fluid with you, what you're already working with. So they make it sound like that's them, but it isn't. So you have to be very careful about that. And if it's happened to you, come speak with me. Even it happens even to the best lenders out there. in organizations. I'm going to be very honest with you. These trigger leads, sometimes even syndication, even with the best lenders that you've heard out there, there's a minimal risk with that happening, where that information is then sold to the highest buyer, etc. And it happens from time to time. It's not uncommon, but if it happens over and over, you have to be very careful about it. There's a very slim chance that there's like a really reduced risk of it happening when you go to the best lender or the best providers, etc., that it won't happen this way, that your information is protected, privacy and everything. And then there's still that little minimal chance that it will then be sent out. But that's just something that can be manageable and worked with. Just communicate with myself and or your broker/agent, and we will get everything squared for you and understand what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Why are you getting this here? I've had people receive like lines of credit of like 600 to 700,000 with different organizations that act like as a direct lender, but they're not. They're going to sell that information everywhere else. They're not to be trusted. And they came to me beforehand, and they would have never gotten that line of credit amount or none of it, but there's somebody else giving them that. So you have to be very careful. They're telling you pre-approved, or here's the offer, sign the contracts. Anyways, let me move forward. I also have this post here that I'm going to use as guidance, but here you can see the homepage. Apply now for funds, request a call, apply business funding, and then unlike a loan, an MCA has no interest. So the way that they have services together, and I'll go into more of them, they work with what are called merchant cash advances. Excuse me. And if you've never heard of this, this is where you are getting in advance. It's not technically a loan based on your future receivables. So what you're making in future sales, your projection value, what you're doing now in revenue, cash flow, and what you will be doing in the future. So those sales, let's say you make more one day, maybe a higher amount gets taken out of your account, as opposed to a lower day of sales and less gets taken out. There could be a fixed percentage. Sometimes it could be set on a daily, it's being taken out /weekly. Very rarely do you see monthly in these kind of cash advances because it causes a lot of defaults. People go into collections and a lot more reasons you have to be very careful with. And there are hybrids ones that I recommend, and these are legitimate services, just so you know this. Merchant cash advances do work very well for those business owners and those businesses who can afford it, because it is more of a medium to higher rate. But what you have to think about at the end of the day is the benefit exceeding your repayment. If you can take that money and you're taking 20K, you're paying 27,000 7 months or so, but you're going to be making 40 to 50,000 in 2 to 3 months or even less or so, then it's a win and it makes sense for you. And it's probably the best service, or it's the only one. But the benefit always has to exceed the repayment. Unless you're cash flow negative, it'll be much harder. If you're cash flow positive, stable, you're going to use this money for good growth and expansion, then it makes sense. Now, there are other alternatives, and I'll leave you more of those down below. I have a lot of video content, as well as a free business loan questionnaire you can submit down below to get a very customized and personalized email response on your best funding option and options. It'll look like this more or less, and I'll walk you through it down below. If not, that'll be the questionnaire form to check out, and it'll be in your best interest because I do very much so care about you and everybody that I work with on a human level and then on business. Now, over here, the capital advance is multiplied by a factor rate to calculate what it is owed, and you repay the amount with the percentage of your future sales, as I just mentioned. Let us assist you in getting the capital and so forth. So it's based on like credit card transactions if you take credit card processing. And even if you don't, there's a hybrid where it's not just based off credit cards, checks, cash, ACH, a bunch of other things included that I'll leave more information to down below. What is the qualification process? And do you qualify? The minimum qualifications, they are less intensive than the banks. If you've been around this space, online lending, you would know that. Just depends on the type of service, because if you're going for an SBA, which is like the top of the top, then you will have to supply a lot more documentation. And I have content out there released on SBA 7A loans. I've even done a series on EIDL versus SBA, EIDL versus merchant cash advances, EIDL versus term loans, lines of credit, etc. You'll want to check that out down below. Pretty cool stuff. We focus on getting you quick approvals and fast capital. If your business fits these qualifications, you can apply today and see what funding options are available for your business. Qualifications, you just need a business checking account, not personal account you're using for business. There are some circumstances, but if you're an independent contractor, gig worker, different type, then you may be able to use your personal account, but you're going to get a lot less. So have a business checking account, time in business 1 year, seamless online application, low credit score, that's okay. No collateral is required, and that's usually the case with these types of unsecured services. So now let me jump on over here to this part, and I'll leave the blog post version for you down below, most likely if you want to see more of that, if anything gets updated. But you can see Capital Funding Group, it's a business funding platform with multiple services from merchant cash advances to SBA loans, and more helping you continue to build, grow, expand, and even get out of the tight pinch. With certain services, you can get funding as fast as 24 to 48 hours, if I hadn't covered that part. And so you have to also be careful because I don't know to what extremity they exactly operate in that regard of once you apply to them and then they have your information, how are they using that? Are they using it for themselves? Are they taking it to a third party lender? Are they shopping it around? So you have to be very careful about it. And I wouldn't recommend it going this direction. And if you want to work with somebody who's very legitimate and will take care of you, it isn't inappropriate information. Your information is privacy protected. You're going to want somebody who communicates with you well, then look down below for that questionnaire to get started and all other information, and I'll get in touch with you. Why Capital Funded Group? So there are 3 parts to this. Zero need for a credit report. A lot of the times in the very beginning, like I used to do this a lot. I don't do it as much unless it's like credit fixes, increases, credit repair. But I still do it from time to time because people want to show me their credit report and I need to ask that so I can pre-underwrite a file before I send it off to a lender in a lot of cases. And so you don't need to supply that credit report, especially from the beginning. With lower documentation, a lot of the time you don't have to. With higher documentation, you usually will be asked for a credit report. If it's not in the beginning, then it could be somewhere in the middle as we're going through the process. But you will not be asked for a credit report when you submit your application, as a lender makes this investment decision independently. And that's dependent on how much deeper we have to look. All right, you're showing fluctuations. Well, we want to know, okay, you'll be here in a month from now. You were here 3 months ago. Like, what's happening? There's some cases where we have to investigate it and look at much deeper level. In a lot of the cases with cash advance products and so forth, you get soft pulls. So it shouldn't hurt necessarily your credit. Maybe there's an inquiry, but make sure you're doing things correctly. The lenders will use your existing information on your application and other independently obtained information. This way, you're not declined for funding because your credit report looks misleading. Competitive interest rates. Although you don't get exact bank rates and terms, you get competitive interest rates and lower requirements for getting funding. So don't think of this as I'm going to walk into a bank and get prime rates at 5.5 or whatever it is as we move forward. And you're like, well, what am I doing getting higher interest or what we call factor rates with these cash advances? And usually a cash advance product, you could see 15% and above, but usually it's 19 to 50 or 19 to 70%, give or take, could be a bit more. Just depends on your funding details. And that means your revenue, your FICO, time in business, your industry, in a bit more deeper when we're looking at bank statements, average daily bank balances, gross revenue, deposits, and all these different components. And these are things that I can work with you with. Now, spend on your terms. You will not be dictated as to how your loan should be spent, or should I say advance as well, or dispersed like banks do, venture capitalists, or other investors. They have contingencies and how you use this money. The banks, you can see that a lot of the time. They may say you could use it for this, but for inventory, no, you'll have to come back and do this, or they won't allow it. You can instead spend the money however you want and whatever you want. It's working capital, growth expansion, buy equipment, payroll, other business operational expenses. You're buying another property, or you need another building. Perhaps we do it this way, or it makes more sense to do it in a different way. Maybe an SBA 504/CDC program, or you want another property. It's not always going to make sense that way, though. You could couple in that with other things in working capital, and this kind of work. So let's go deeper inside. So going inside Capital Funded Group over here, after we kind of just covered this part up, and we go to our services. So you can see the common theme there. Business loans. They're not only dedicated to helping you with your financing, your business needs, but to educating you as the client on various options available. SBA loans. Now, I don't know to what extent they will actually educate you on this. There are a lot of lenders / organizations out there, how they operate as being pushy. I don't want to say they are, not what I'm saying. But from what I'm hearing, on the sense that when people are buying trigger leads, they're very forward with people. It's not like high pressure. There could be some pressure there because they have your information. They want you to do something, and you just have to be careful because you're like, who are they? I don't even know you on a personal level. Like, I want to get to know you a little bit as much as you decide you open up. And I'm an introvert, so with me, we keep it very good, compact. However much you decide, that's okay. But I'll be willing to work with you and go the distance if you show that as well. If you're open-minded, one, and then two, you're able to give feedback. Now, SBA loans, long-term loans, which are paid back with regular payments over time, including interest, short-term loans, term loans, equipment financing, small business startup loans, MCAs or merchant cash advances, lines of credit, invoice financing, or what we call invoice factoring in a lot of cases. So that's as much as you're going to see. The downside, and I'll get into some of those topics, you can't really read into this even more. Like, okay, so I have to apply or I have to contact you by number to get more information about your products and how they work. And by that point, you have to be very careful about, because I'm not saying they operate this way, but what happens with a lot of companies is they have like robotic answering machines. They have you say yes or no to something. If they have you say yes, then they progress to the next step without you getting more information. Now they end up calling you over and over again. Then you end up being frustrated, wondering, oh my goodness. And that's probably happening not only here, but with other companies. And you're thinking they're giving me more. So I'm going to go and give them my attention. But you don't understand how this works. There are levels, there are A tier, B tier, C tier plus lenders who are looking at your file. If you couldn't qualify for it with an A tier lender because of your funding details, what are you doing going to apply to that direct lender or that brokerage when we know we've already looked at them? Or two, that won't work because you're a C tier, you're not an A tier. So you're just going over there to waste energy and time. Now that you have all these applications out on the web, lenders will not approve of you. They will say you've applied too many times, and they'll put it in a nice way. You've been applying too much recently, and it shows us you're not serious. You're just shopping around looking for the lowest price. You don't really understand how this works. Maybe nobody's educating you on this, and I get it. I've been in your shoes. I wish I had somebody like this who could educate me on the products, because you shouldn't just be using the spray and pray method. That's horrible. And we don't know what happens with those lenders. Maybe they give you something. I go, okay, yeah, that's a good offer, but are they the right individual? Are they the right company to go with? There are times where I'll say, yes, stick with them and then grow out of that. And then you can go here and this works this way, or no, don't stick with that. This is what you want to do. And it makes sense. Now, for my benefit, your benefits, remember, I care about you first, business second. And we can get into the business side of the equation and speak about all this. So over here, let me come back to this. As you can see, parts of that. The most common funding service, as I said it in the beginning, is a merchant cash advance. I spoke on that already. How you get types of payments, fixed or a percentage, and how they operate. Qualifications, we already went into that. No collateral, low credit scores. Usually with these types of products, you can get in. But it's based more on revenue and cash flow. So if you're cash flow positive, better, stable, negative, it'll be harder for you to have an approval, let alone justify why you're taking that money. If there's no benefit, if you're going to get approved for 100,000, but you're like, I just want that 100,000 just to sit there, and you're given 12 months, 12 or 15 months, but you're like, I'm not going to be doing anything with it for the next 6 months, but you wanted to apply now and then get your funds in a month from now. Can you hold off? That doesn't work this way. The non-collateralized, we just can't hold off like that. And so when you're ready to use this lump sum, then apply when it's necessary. And understand your ROI, your return on your investment, not only with financing, like what'll be my gross profit, my gross margins, my gross revenue month to month, what it'll look like long term if that helps me with profitability. If not, what it'll help me in the short term, and then what I can transition to in the long term, or if it helps me with both, as well as your return on your investment with the activities you produce in your business, your relationships you build, your customers, your employees, with different assets, with different components that factor into the overall equation, but you put them into subsets. And then understand the risk potential you're getting yourself into. If it's going to help you with cash flow, if it won't, well, you'll be in 3 to 6 months. So people don't think about this correctly, and they have the wrong connotation about cash advances and so forth. And I even have articles on stuff like merchant cash advances with same-day approvals and what I recommend to be the best lenders and or brokerages, and what I recommend doing for your specific situation will all be in there. So application process, you will look at it right now. So this will be what it looks like. They really want you to get on a call, I guess, because they're putting this up front. And then you have to kind of scroll down. Usually when you think about applying now, you would want to go through an application, or you probably think about giving them a phone call. With fintech companies and a lot of them out there, they will necessarily not have you do a hard copy PDF, but it's usually digital nowadays. Excuse me, so it can be and or, just depends on the circumstances. So here you're going to see amount requesting, use of funds, business legal name, doing business as, type of entity, business start date, federal tax ID, state of incorporation. It's very common, especially when you go through these kind of applications and anywhere else. Like I have a lot of people who can't verify state of incorporation. They have to go through the SOS, Secretary of State. And even then, they may not get through to them. Maybe they don't get that information. Maybe you're a nonprofit and that's much harder to get information for. Maybe you can't get it, and there's another way we have to go around it. So be very careful about this too, and make sure you have everything ready. Annual revenue, industry type, business phone number. You'll see the field required if you haven't filled that. Business address, city, state, zip code, any current business advance or loans. Yes or no? How many owners are there? Probably more than two. Have you received any funding in the last 30 days? First owner's information, if it, then second owner, if another one, and then you'll want to read through this. The merchant owners also identified above, and you can see accuracy and authorization. Request and receive any investigative reports, credit reports, statements from creditors or financial institutions, verification. So you're seeing or financial institutions, so it's probably going to be pushed out to a few others. So you're already agreeing for them to do all of this. And there are a lot of reasons that this makes sense to do, and a lot of places that are very legit will ask you to do this, so that's okay. But if you don't exactly know what you're getting yourself into, it may seem a little bit daunting. And sometimes they may have more information where you're like, well, no, is this information getting dispersed? So you're seeing that here, and its agents are authorized to request and receive any investigative reports, credit reports, statements from creditors or financial institutions, verification or information, or any other information that CFG, its agency, the merchant, each owner offers agrees to receive calls, texts, emails, or mail from the CFG AMS or its agent. So you're already agreeing to that just by putting your signature. So be very careful about all of this, because you might be just getting pushed on with emails and getting contacted, and you're not wanting that. There are other organizations who are legitimate who kind of do this more or less, but they won't contact you like over and over. They'll follow up with you when the time is right. Like myself, I don't pressure anybody. I'll just follow up with you. But if you're leaving me with nothing and feedback where I need to ask for it, then let's not even begin with. If you want to work with somebody who's going to just daunt a little carrot over your head and be like, come over here, dance monkey. And then you become very unresponsive, or you want them to do, you think you're putting your best hands in them, but when they're not actually taking care of you, they're over promising and under delivering. You'd rather want somebody who's very punctual like myself, who's on top of things. So be very careful about what you're getting yourself into. You can see the signatures there, and then submit, and you'll be taken to the next page. But over here, let's cover this part up and we'll round up. So it was pretty difficult to find any kind of reviews of like legitimate clients. You see this on their home screen. Like the information out there isn't really, like, you see trusted by over 10,000 local businesses. We work with a wide variety of clients, both in private and public sector. Simple process, easy online application, and the approvals, funding in 48 hours. So you almost question if they are an actual lender, because not a lot of lenders. Sometimes you see a lot of brokerages who don't have those testimonials on their page. And you can see the contact us, they have different ones. And in Florida there, USA, which you have to be careful about what you're getting yourself into if they actually all operate from there. So it's very difficult. So if I just did, there's more ways I was looking at this. It's hard to even find other reviews, perhaps by video and so forth. So if you were to type this in, you will see a lot with capital funding groups. So don't get the two confused. They may not be correlated. I want to say yes, they are. But you see a lot of these on capital funding group, which is not the same thing as capital funded group, unless it's working as an intermediary where it's transitioning people to that website. Because I see it a lot in other organizations where they act as the intermediary and then they send it to another website. So I'm not saying that they are them. What I'm saying is there's a differentiation between the two, that you shouldn't get the two mixed up. Now, I searched everywhere for, I literally like was looking around for, like, you look for profiles, you can look for Facebook accounts. I mean, I shouldn't have to search everywhere for a Facebook account, but just to entertain it, look at this. Sorry, I have my HP lighting. I can't always see what I'm typing there. So you can't always see, but you're seeing that people are not so happy with what they're doing. And there's one here you can see, got an email from Capital Funded Group with a request for 3 months bank statements today. Another one of his clients got one from SBA Advance requesting to fill out another application. But you're seeing it right there. And that's not the only individual. There are more people out there. I've been a victim of, well, I wouldn't put it quote unquote victim. I don't want to put it in such an aggressive manner. So I'll back that up and say that I've been in a position not only with companies like these, but other ones where clients have come back to me and go, I've been getting these emails. I don't know who they're from. They've been telling me to sign contracts. And then I investigated deeper and I go, now I got to speak. If we knew them, they're not on our radar anymore. So I've filtered out the lenders who will not do these kinds of practices, and I only work with the best. Just so you know that you're in good hands, safe and secure. Um, and in cases, having to speak with those account managers, and then just wondering what they're doing. They don't release my client because it's somehow they're underneath them. I don't know how that happened. Other companies are doing this, and you just have to be very careful about it. But there are people, as you saw, search. You can really look everywhere, but there are literally like none. However, there are brokers agents who are saying that, and you've seen that with other cases, and individuals don't always come up front with that and won't post reviews on that. They're only speaking to their brokers and agents about it. So be very careful. How much does it cost? You can't really say for sure myself, like what application fees or any hidden costs. But I do know that, like any other cash advance / business loans, there are closing costs, origination fees, lending costs, broker costs, etc. So it could be coupled with a few 500 to 3,000 or so with a lot of these, and it's just a very common piece, and sometimes even more than 3,000. That's what comes off the remaining, like what you got off proof for. Maybe you got 100,000, but closing 2 to 3,000 removed from that. So probably end up with 97 to 98,000. So another cost you will endure if you do this is your energy and time. And what's meant by that is if you know you won't qualify, you know it'll be a waste to go through and you're not trusting who they are, like I've said in this, and how they may operate as trigger leads, types of operations. And there are other ways, not only trigger leads, but this is what is being heard and this is what I'm hearing. And then I know because I've also dealt with this in other organizations. It happens with a lot of other organizations out there that they have this information and they use it. So that's what you can endure, your time and energy. You only have so much energy and time to give. Be careful of what you do, who you give it to. And like I said earlier about trigger leads and more, I honestly wouldn't want to move forward. Maybe it's already part of this whole syndication database. So be very careful. I don't participate in any of that. Who is capital funded group for? For small businesses who don't have good credit or perhaps do no collateral, 1 year time of business plus, and would like to get fast financing without collateral and have to go through a long application and underwriting process, plus have to supply a lot of documentation. Here's more: small businesses with bad credit and or low revenue, as well as have trouble getting funding anywhere else. You don't mind having your information shopped around, likely, don't mind possibly getting higher rates than you should, because a lot of these companies, I'm not saying they will give you higher rates than other places, but they do that. They may give you a longer term just to keep you satisfied, where it wouldn't have made sense to do that. And I get people who send me their offers, and I go, you shouldn't have ever received a longer term. You have to be very careful about this. Now they're going to charge you more. Total cost of financing is more, so they're making more money themselves. And you think you're benefiting more, but they're benefiting the most because they're charging you more over time. And they know you won't be able to pay this off early. There's probably no early payment discounts, no prepayment penalty, or there are, but you won't. So you have to be careful. You don't mind having your information shopped around because that's what they may or may not do. They may shop it around to other brokers, agents, lenders, organizations. Maybe they get a cut from that. You have to be very careful about this. You have no collateral. You want funds between 24 to 48 hours or so. You want flexible funding. Who's it not for? You want your information protected 100%, not 90%, 95%. And again, that said, even with the best lenders, there's that little marginal difference where it could still be bought from the highest buyer, from the credit bureaus and or other ways. So even at that, but you want to minimize that risk and you want to speak with somebody like myself so you can be better prepared when this happens and if it happens. So I minimize that risk of happening and your privacy is protected with myself. So again, who's it not for though? You don't want your information, you want your information protected like at the highest amount possible. You want to be certain about what you're getting yourself into. You can trust. You don't want to work with lenders, organizations participating in shopping your information around publicly or other ways that they may be doing things, causing multiple inquiries and so forth. You want a company that participates in good ethics as well as lenders and not buying customer data out there and having to steal people, because that's what they'll do. They'll come in here like sharks and they'll see that you've applied or you've gone this far to an offer, you haven't said yes or no to it. Maybe you did reject it. So now they're reaching out to you and you're like, yeah, they look good. They want to give me, this company over here was giving me 8 months. This one's giving me 15 months and they're giving me an additional 30,000. Wow. Yeah. No, hold the excitement, speak with me. You can qualify for many other options with more flexibility. You want better lenders slash organizations who practice good ethics at the end of the day. And I'm not saying they're unethically like 100%, but from what I'm seeing out there and how they operate, it's not as ethical for me if I go and find somebody else's information that somebody worked really hard for and they have a personal and business relationship with that individual and they've educated them so much and they know the value is there, but they decided to go a different way because somebody else was dangling a carrot or a banana over their head, telling them, "Hey, dance monkey, come over here." Be very careful. Tire kickers, lazy people, no effort seekers, and more. Pros and cons: fast, flexible funding to help you grow and expand your business. Simple qualification process, hassle-free application process, multiple services offered. Cons: trigger leads participant most likely, and there are other ways. I'm not saying it's solely trigger leads, but from what I'm seeing, perhaps they don't do this in the future. But it is what it is, and you see this. And they're not the only one. There are other individuals out there who are saying this, and you're seeing other types of participants in a lot of this and buying information out there from the credit bureaus or however they're getting that information, and who in the past applied or recently have offers, etc. You don't see much or any reviews of them from their own clients, as I just said earlier. You see it more from like brokers and agents, but you don't really see the whole, yeah, I got funded through them and like Trustpilot, Google reviews. Like there's not much of that. Maybe in the future. Higher risk funding with a lot of these cash out advances. If you qualify for them, that's your best option, and that makes sense. But the benefit has EIDL repayment. It's less about interest. It's more about the term and getting a better repayment if you can at the start. If not, you get a better term in the future as you grow and expand, and you do better, and you're improving clients, and everything gets a lot better there. Alternatives. There are definitely more of them, and I'll leave you them down below in the description. I have quite a few, like Biddy, Advanced Business with that. There's quite a few, National Business Capital, Gold Capital, Fountainhead, Credit Suisse, more for business credit. And I'll leave you more information down below to check out those recommended lenders slash programs, organizations that are most legitimate, that I've worked with a lot of people get funding of all different sizes. And I'll walk you through that as well in the application sequence and how it all works, rates, etc., as well as this questionnaire form, which I recommend so you can get a personalized understanding of what you can get. What I didn't like, I mean, like I said, the obvious elephant in the room, how other brokers and agents are responding back, even clients out there, like getting frustrated with all of this. So you have to be careful about who is contacting you. You have to be very careful people buying your data and accessing your application or somebody else's. The truth is that even the best and most popular lenders out there, it has happened to. But it's not like it's something huge. It's manageable if you're working with the right individual like myself. Final thoughts, just kind of went over that and what my recommendation is to get up to 25K, up to 35K, up to 2 million incredibly fast funding without collateral, no hard credit checks. Bad credit is acceptable. I'll help you understand the underwriting guidelines and a lot of things. If you're looking for higher tier products, perhaps you have collateral so you can lower the interest. Maybe it's an SBA form and you qualify for it, and I will speak with you. Maybe it's a credit line hybrid with credit cards, business credit building on the back end. And there's a lot more: personal loans, startup loans, equipment financing. That list goes on and on, that I can go ahead and show you. And that'll a lot of the times be in this questionnaire response that I give you back. And I believe that is everything. So it may look like this too, the one that you get access to. You may have to select from one of the two options. Are you a startup with this or that? Non-startup. I just want to make sure I speak to you and what you're needing. Either way, but you see that. So it'll look like this, more or less similar. And then if we come back here, click there. Usually I'll bring you back to the same page you're on. And then we can move forward. So that will conclude everything from me in this video. You have a better understanding of how capital funded group, not confused with funding group, operates, and what you've been hearing and what you've been seeing, and as well as my end as the broker slash agent. I've had a lot of instances with organizations out there who, pretend to be somebody they're not, just so it's synchronizing. And from what you've just recently or have heard in the past, you go, oh, that's them. Okay, thanks for reaching out to me. Not always, but then they pull you in their ecosystem and you have to be careful about what you're participating in. It might be a scam, it might be fluff and theory based, they might be doing things like that. I'm not saying they are 100%, but if they're participating in something like trigger leads or something similar, and it's, to me, unethical. I know it's a tough industry out there, for a lot of you, especially me, because I still get a lot of those emails. Come get the financing. I've received financing myself in the past, and I know what it is like to sometimes hear from somebody you don't know, being under-delivered. And I always wished I had somebody like, myself now who's an expert at this, help them get through the thick and thin, and will always be there with them every step of the way. And I will be there with you. All parts of underwriting at the end, once you receive funding, I help you a lot. Thereafter, I have the right roadmap strategy on what you can do. So that's everything for myself. Turn to the description down below to check out this questionnaire if you haven't already. All other information. If you already did fill this out, I'll get back to you soon. I am flooded, and so that's what you want. You want somebody who's flooded because it shows to that reputation. And my site down below, all other information, and I will get back to you soon. Leave any comments down below if you have anything. If you found value out of this video, I'd really appreciate you if you gave it a thumbs up. Share with others who you feel will get value out of it. It could be a complete stranger, friend, or family member, but you know that at the end of the night, they were able to rest their head on the pillow, as well as yours. They can go ahead and go through the night sleeping smoothly without having to have a hard thought, a nightmare, let alone, and then wake up. They feel more refreshed because their subconscious and conscious mind, they are in a great place. They know they're going to be taken care of. They have the right education first and foremost, and then second, they know what they have to do to get prepared to then walk into an application with 110% confidence and certainty that they can get approved without making mistakes day after days, weeks, months, and even years of sifting through old, outdated, scammy type of information and so forth. That's everything for myself. I think I mentioned this already. If you haven't subscribed, please give it a thumbs. Please do so and click that bell notification icon so you do not miss any future content I will be coming out with on companies like this, as well as EIDL and all other types of solutions. That's it for now. Talk soon.